What's up, Wise Take? Welcome to the premiere edition of the 2021-2022 NFL DFS Wise stream. I'm your host, back for another year, Patio Joe. You can follow me on Twitter at Patio Joe Ref. And I'm joined here once again by my fellow Guido. I mean, it's like we're back again for another year, just like Jersey Shore family vacation, back again for another season. I got my man, Paulie D, coming in from Florida. How you doing, buddy? Good to talk to you again.
Yeah, man, doing really good. Thrilled to be on with you and talk some football, man. It's awesome that it's here, and the regular season's like, I think 3 Sundays away, which is glorious. Best time of the year.
Yes, it really is. Coming this Sunday will be 3 weeks away. Definitely, it's fantasy draft season. We'll get into all that. We'll get into DFS strategy and stuff. But the last time that we talked, it was January, and lots happened with the Wise Take Nation since then. CK was basically 2 days from being a new father, and his daughter's now 7 months old. Baseball season had the biggest win of your DFS career, winning over 35 grand in a year, in 1 day, on a day slate, wasn't it? On like a Wednesday or Thursday?
Yeah, it was an afternoon slate. Yep.
And myself, last time I probably saw the nation, I was probably about 65 pounds, and about the middle of March, I dedicated to getting myself healthy, mentally and physically. I joined Orange Theory Fitness Gym, started eating right, and I'm down almost 50 pounds since then. I feel great. I have great energy. What spawned that was in January. Man, it was COVID and the schools were closed, and my wife was working, and I basically had to be like Mr. Mom for like a month, and having to be with the kids, literally just tore me down physically. And I was sick the next month for a week. And I was like, man, I'm just not in a great shape. And so I just wanted to get in better shape. And I love it. Orange Series all around the nation, guys. If you want to have more, if you have any questions about it, I speak very highly of it. I'm living proof that it works if you keep with it. But anyways, but yeah, we've had a great time. Paulie, tell me about that win at 35K, man. How was that?
It was amazing. Obviously. This has just been an awesome baseball season for me. It's like, I think every year in my DFS career I've progressed, but the last 2 years I've made a significant jump, and this year culminating in that kind of large win. But I mean, I've had many, multiple $1,000 wins this year, and it's, the first year I'm kind of sweating the tax season because, I haven't really kept track, but I know it's a lot, and it's a lot of fun when you can do that, have a second income out of DFS. It's, all the hard work kind of paid off, and, it was just a normal day. I got kind of contrarian. I used the Rangers stack, one of the worst teams in baseball. I think all 4 Ranger guys I had doubled down, or not, they all homered. One guy doubled down. I don't really remember much of the team anymore. I mean, I know I had Kikuchi from Seattle on that team. He was kind of contrarian, but it was just a culmination of a lot of years of commitment to DFS and a lot of near wins that were big like that. But, always kind of would fall to second, third, or fourth, and it finally held, and it was a glorious time.
Yeah, man. I remember the funny thing is I was ironically on like a podcast doing
Yeah,
like a
yeah.
mock draft at the time, and I was like, this was all going down, and I was like, oh yeah, somebody from White State went 35 grand on it. I was doing like a mock draft for the Scott Fish Bowl and such. So, anyways, though, so we're gonna just kind of talk about a little bit NFL DFS strategies, get everybody kind of their feet wet again. As you know, if you've been following me and Paulie for years, Paulie's the GPP guy. I'm more the cash game player. I like to play a little bit. I'll play the single entry, lower dollar entry tournaments. When we're writing for Wise Take, Paulie writes the GPP article. I write the cash game article for both DraftKings and FanDuel. So be sure to get our content on that. We have a weekly article. We will have a show previewing the week every Wednesday. So be sure it'll be right around this time. So, if you're up, have a little after hours, having a cup of coffee, listen to us. Or if you're waking up the next morning, we'll preview the Thursday games, we'll preview the weekend games and such like that. So, anyways, yeah, Paulie, going back to your win, as soon as you can get a victory like that, it puts you in that stratosphere where you can play those higher dollar tournaments with lower people in it.
Yeah.
And it just increases your odds of winning more. It's much easier to win a 250-man tournament at $1,000 buy-in than it is with a $10 buy-in with 50,000 people. It's just That's just the way it is. So it just puts you in such a different just bracket of being able to play at a better, more bankroll. You lose a day or two, not that big of a deal, and such. So, and plus you're not one for the multi lineup entries anymore, right? You don't do max.
If I had the time, I would certainly use that approach more, but my business I run just doesn't allow me to have that much time anymore. And, I didn't want to just be throwing out wasted lineups. So it's just, where I'm at in my life right now, it's just easier to do 3 to 5 kind of lineups in baseball. And football, I'll probably do more like 10 to 20, with 3 or 4 kind of higher dollar, smaller field, like my main teams, and then try to get maybe a 20 entry or something like that. Cause I do think to take down some of those, $5, $8 large contests, the more teams you can get, the merrier. And football being once a week, I'll have a little bit more time to prepare and strategize and put that out there. But for the daily sports like baseball and basketball, it's just I don't have the time to do all that preparation on a daily basis. So for baseball, I was doing basically 2 to 5 lineups a day, and it's been working fine for me. But football, I do kind of want to have a healthy mix, because it's just that there's other smaller slates intra-week, but Sunday's really the main big day that everyone's kind of gearing for, and I'm planning to try to do a little bit of both.
Yeah, it's good. So that's just he just pretty much touched upon the GPP way of thinking. Myself being the cash game guy, I do it. I have one cash game lineup that I will put that in all of my cash game tournaments. I don't try and differentiate a little bit here, a little bit there, because that's not how you win at cash games. Cash games, you've got to put one lineup in all your cash game lineups and play with that and win it. And you'll either cash it all. Now you can differentiate between 50-50, head-to-head, and those kind of games if you want to. I'm more of a 50-50 kind of guy. I just like to do that. 100 mans, that's what I'm usually do. But I will also do the lower dollar single entries, the 5, the 10s, the 25s, the single entries, and I will probably only have 1 or 2 other lineups. Most of the fact is kind of touching what Paulie says is I just don't have time to go with a million lineups, because I got my job, 3 kids, and I got also the seasonal teams that I run. and I got to concentrate on that. So, you kind of don't want to put too many eggs in too many baskets. I feel like when you're a DFS player, you should find out what type of player you are, hone in on that, just like seasonal. Find out what kind of seasonal format that you like, hone in on that, and just play that, because trying to play too many things with too many things going on, you're going to spread yourself too thin and you won't be successful.
Didn't you like win your first like 8 weeks last season and you just jump out the gates like 8-0? And that's awesome.
I did. Yeah, I did. Cash games are tough because you are going to have to navigate through the trains. If there are people out there that don't even want to do any work at all, and they pay a site who gives out a lineup, and they just run that lineup and they go with it. Or we have what are, if you're into DFS conspiracies, we always have it where we think that there's the maybe the sharks or the pros, they basically go around and they have one lineup, and because it always seems to be like the guys that are owners of companies and such have the same lineup as each other, and you're like, wow, it's kind of funny how they have the same lineup in cash games. But it is what it is. I've learned to just kind of go with it. But yeah, I love cash games. I love just, it's great because Paulie and I will come on here, and Paulie likes to know, okay, who's the chalk? Because I will tell him what the chalk is. I'll be right on, because that's what cash games are. You need to find out who's going to be popular. You need to get different in a certain places, certain here or there, but you don't really care if somebody is going to be 75% owned. You want it to be 75% owned because you're
looking for the optimal plays at each position.
Correct. And the big difference between cash games and GPPs, in my opinion, and some people do it both ways. Some people will just do one lineup and that's what they go with, but is stacking. Now, we'll go over stacking. If you haven't played, if you're new to DFS, stacking is not just playing the quarterback and the receiver together. Stacking is playing the quarterback, two receivers, and the tight end, or quarterback, the receiver, and the tight end, and such. But I don't stack in cash games. I might do a correlation play. I might do 3 at the most, but I will not do 4, a full man stack. And some of these trains will. It's a very easy way to beat the trains, because if that stack doesn't go off, they're not going to cash. But in GPPs, Paul, they talk about it, how that's what you do. You got to correlate everything.
Yeah, exactly. That's the key word there. You just want to try to correlate as much as you can. There's certain games and certain weeks that just outscore the field by a significant amount, and having multiple players from those teams that are in that game that happen to do most of the scoring. For example, like a 49-42 shootout. You have the quarterback who throws 4 touchdowns, and you have a receiver that he throws 2 of them to, and a tight end who also goes over 100 yards. A quarterback throws for 300 plus. The receiver you have also goes over 100. All that correlation, kind of happens together. And then you run a player 2 back from the other side, and when those hit, it's just a great way to put up like a massive score. And, for the reason you just mentioned, having all your eggs in one basket, a lot of people don't do that very often, because when it doesn't work out, you're very unlikely to even cash, because there's just so many other, solid plays that the field are on that do well. But, when you're trying to take down a tournament like the Millie Maker and DraftKings for week 1, there's 2 of them, but, the more economical one is $5, and I think it has like 1,000,001 entrants, so to take something like that down, you have to maximize correlation to the fullest and hit on one of those kind of back and forth games that outscores the rest of the field. And, that's kind of the way I approach football season. I'm looking for a big score, and I'm playing, a variety of GPPs, some smaller field with higher dollar, and a lot of those smaller dollar, massive field contests. And that's the approach you got to take to try to win one, because it's, almost impossible to pick one specific play from 9 different games that ends up being the optimal from each one of those. It's a lot easier to catch the right game and the right players from within that by stacking them.
Yeah. And, basically, probably how we go about our process on what will go picking the right games is, we basically start, we start with Vegas. We want to see what the total is with the games. If we have a high total, we know that obviously the defenses are probably very good and it's going to be a back and forth type of game. What else do you look for when you're looking forward to pick out what kind of game? I mean, to me, it's pretty much Vegas is the.
Sure. Vegas is Vegas for a reason. They are the best in the game at, predicting what type of outcomes the games are going to have. And it's a good starting point to kind of get a feel for which games have the potential to score more and, which players from those games are gonna do that. So, it's definitely a good starting point and leads into just a variety of many other things you can look at. Defense versus position, what the team's, pass rank versus the opponent's defensive rank against the pass game or the run game, vice versa. Who's favored, in the games where like a team is expected to blow out an opponent and they're a 10+ point favorite, you generally expect the running back to do well because the team's going to get out to a lead and not need to throw the ball and, try to run out the clock and go home with the victory. There's a million different things to look at, but it certainly starts with, the Vegas line and what the projected outcome for the games are.
Yeah, and you can also tell just by the Vegas line right away, like, okay, that game's going to be popular. Even this, like a singular play from that game is going to be the chalk. You can almost go off of that and like our man at the chalk, my man at the chalk, you know what I'm saying? And go against it. And right away, okay, well, maybe I'm going to go for the 4th game because I think that that's going to shoot out more than these games or what have you. That's the way you win is when that game up top doesn't go off, and then you have the one that does. In cash games going into last year, in FanDuel, you just needed about 130 points in your cash game lineup, and then for DK, you needed about 140 points. So you're trying to find how many points you need to get from each position. I need to get 20 points from my quarterback. So that's about, on FanDuel, that's 275 yards and 2 touchdowns. Especially if you get a rushing upside, you can get a 6-point rushing touchdown. That's always good. For running backs, you're trying to reach a total of 30 points. That's about 200 rushing yards and a TD with 6 receptions on FanDuel. That's a half. You got to know the differences between the sites too. FanDuel is half point per reception. DraftKings is full point per reception. DraftKings has bonuses for 100 yards for receiving, rushing, and what, 300 for passing, Paulie, or is it 400?
300 for passing, 100 rushing, 100 receiving for the receivers.
So, and then for the receiving, you want 50 points from the receivers. You want about 90 yards from your 3 receivers, 7 receptions, and 2 TDs. Tight ends or flex, you're looking for about 10 points per position. And, there's always, I think, believe it or not, selecting defense in DFS is more important than people think.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's some weeks where the Patriots defense won people tournaments on like more than one time, I think 2 years ago. I mean, it was crazy. And there's always, it's very polarizing. Do you just pay up for the best defense or do you try and look for the value? I know DK always tries to tempt you with a very cheap defense down below. FanDuel, not as much.
Yeah, the pricing structure is different. And, I don't have like a specific rule I follow on that. Each week is different. It really depends like what the rest of your roster construction is going to look like to dictate how much salary you're going to have left over to pick a defense. But I agree, it's more than just like it's the last team, the last player you select for your team. You want to put as much thought into that spot as the rest, because a lot of people don't. And, there are, a few defenses each week that really separate from the pack, and having that defense can really differentiate you.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you're doing lineup construction, we talked about stacking a little bit and stuff, but when I do my cash game lineup, I have a core that I will put out in my lineup. So it's basically, these, I'm going to say these are the 4 guys that I want you to put in your lineup no matter what. These are my 4 most important plays. In GBPs, do you do that, or is it 4 and 4 or 4, 3 and 1 because you need to have 3 teams or whatever, or is it?
I don't think I have like a specific formula at all, but I'm definitely going to have at least one stack and potentially more. Like, a running back with their defense is a stack in DFS. Quarterback with the receiver and running back something from the other team, or a quarterback with multiple pass catchers, or a pass catching running back plus a receiver or a tight end. And, just trying to capitalize on correlation in GPPs is what you have to do. But I don't have like specific rules that I follow. Like it has to be, 3 from the offense and 1 from, the opposing team. It really varies from week to week. And I don't know if I have like a core that I put on every team, but each week I end up with a player pool of, 3 to 6, 7 or 8 guys that are like my favorite plays of the week. A lot of times they are correlated. Like if Tyreek Hill's my favorite receiver of the week, it's very likely that I'm going to be very high on Pat Mahomes as well, and try to combine them in some of my teams and bring someone back from the opposing team, or add another pass catcher like Travis Kelce or whoever it may be. But, I think I don't have like a specific number or grouping, but, every week you'll end up with, 2 to 10 favorite plays that you're going to have in the bulk of your lineup, so that when you are right, you're going to do really well that weekend.
Mm-hmm. What is your thought process on tight ends, and you pay up for them all the time? Because I feel like the thought process, in cash games, it's like there's 3 guys, maybe 2, if you really want to, we could talk about it, where you're dependable every week. You got Kelce and you got Darren Waller. You got Kittle when he's healthy.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, I have Kelce and Waller as basically just the 2 guys that you can lock in and almost play and be the safest point on the board. What say you?
So, if they are both on the slate in good spots, I think it's like you want to try to get them because they can separate from the rest of the position so significantly. Whereas, at receiver, there could be a handful of, mid-tier 5 to 6K receivers that have that blow-up game at low ownership and match some of the stud guys. Where at the tight end position, it's not never, but it's kind of rare that those 2 to 4 kind of top guys get matched, even on a point per dollar basis by some of the middle of the pack players. This position is very top heavy, with Kelce, Waller, a healthy Kittle, and, maybe, a guy like Mark Andrews with limited options in their offense could, when he's healthy, could be there. But yeah, Kittle, Waller, Kelce, I would agree, are like far and above at that position. And when like weighing whether I should pay up for a receiver or a tight end, it seemed, especially last year, that paying up for that tight end, paid off more than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's the top ones bust. They don't bust very rare, but once you get down, it's a crapshoot.
Yeah,
you're just hoping for 4 for 40, and if he falls in the end zone, my God, you're loving life. But
I feel like running back has almost become that way as well. Like there's like, I don't know, maybe half a dozen bell cow guys that are getting that many touches, red zone touches, and pass game involvement that can post those big scores versus what the rest of the running back field is nowadays. I don't think we have 10 plus guys that are in that top tier running back anymore either.
Well, that kind of just bleeds us into what we'll talk about next. Let's talk about some players. Let's talk about this upcoming season. Paulie, just bring up DraftKings prices and stuff, and we'll kind of just go by position and just kind of preview the position in general. Not even so much for week one, just in general what we're going into. The rookies, the this and that. I got a take on this rookies that's going on. All the hoopla surrounding it. And then, we'll go just kind of looking, because I pulled up FanDuel's prices for week one because that's out. It's been out for a while. But at the QB position this year, obviously, we got Mahomes at the top. Everybody loves him. I think what the Chiefs did on revamping their offensive line after losing a couple players, after getting kind of embarrassed in the Super Bowl, and showing that no matter who's under quarterback, if you don't have an offensive line, you're going to get beat. By the way, props to you, Paul. You had the Buccaneers at least going to the Super Bowl. I don't know if you had them winning, but I know you had them going to the Super Bowl when we did our preview show last year. I had the Saints, but you had the Bucs. So there's a lot of people that are in the Kyler Murray is going to be QB1 this year. And then Aaron Rodgers is back, obviously up top. The rookies, the rookie quarterbacks, I was watching them this week, and you would have thought that the next coming, Joe Montana and Mahomes Brady was all into one by the way that Twitter was reacting on Justin Fields playing a preseason game and throwing an underthrowing blown coverage touchdown pass in the third quarter against guys that'll probably be selling cars in 2 weeks. And they play, and they're just wanting him to start. Same thing happens with Trey Lance. He makes one good play, and then he goes 4 for 13 the rest of the time for 38 yards. But yet they want to already just start these guys. And look, I see the talent in Fields, and I see the talent in Lance. Lawrence is going to start anyways, and so is Wilson. I think Wilson is Mark Sanchez 2.0. That's my opinion. They both had the same amount of starts in college, 16. But yet they're ready to go to the NFL. Yeah, right. I'm not buying Zach Wilson. I could be wrong, but Trevor Lawrence I think is going to be great. Fields I think is going to be good too, but it's like they want these guys to become starters so quick when they're probably not ready. Let's give them a few weeks to even just get their feet under it. Let's have them take a couple snaps. You have a guy like competent. Now, granted, it's like because they have Fields, that Dalton is just terrible and they want him out. And it's like you're already destroying this guy without even letting him take a snap. It's like the minute he throws an interception, they're going to want Fields in the game. The minute he screws up, same thing with Garoppolo. They could go 5-1 if Garoppolo gets hurt in the third quarter of a game, comes out, Lance comes in and does it. They're going to want him to start the rest of the year. And Garoppolo took the Super Bowl 2 years ago, and they're ready to just replace him.
Yeah, well, it's the success that you saw from Herbert, Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, and everyone wanting these next batch of guys to be, that good and get them out there right away.
Mahomes sat a year at least, though. I mean, Herbert. Yeah. You know what I think was great about Herbert was people had no expectations.
Right.
He just started one game because the stupid ass Chargers trainer punctured Tyrod Taylor's lung with a shot, and he happened to start, and lo and behold, look what happened. And it wasn't like there was all this pressure, because it's like if Fields and Lance come in and they know he's going to start, here he goes, here he comes, starting. then it's a pressure. Then like nobody really knew. Okay, and he did good. He almost beat the Chiefs that day. So it was kind of like under the radar, and he did great. And it's like everybody expects them now to be great, and they might not be successful right off the bat.
Sure.
And,
I mean, Joe Burrow was, but then he got hurt. But I agree. A lot of times it's better to ease into it than get thrown right into the fire. But, it really comes down to how good or not that player is. And, teams that have been struggling and haven't had good quarterbacks, they're just really anxious to turn that around as fast as possible and hope that their guy is the next Patrick Mahomes. So, like, I understand people's anxiousness to do so. But, we'll see how they play out. Which of the five is your favorite? You think will do? Well, who do you think will be most relevant this fantasy season?
I think by the end of the season, I think Justin Fields will help people win fantasy championships because I think Dalton will be. I don't think Garoppolo is going to give up the starting job all year. In my opinion, I think Fields is going to start by week 4. I think Garoppolo has it because if you look at the Niners' schedule, it's pretty cupcake unless Garoppolo gets hurt, which he does. He might. And so then it's Fields' job, whatever. But I like Fields. I think Lawrence is going to go through some growing pains, but he's still going to put up the numbers just because he's so good. I think Zach Wilson's going to be a bust. And I think Trey Lance is going to be like Mahomes, just sit on the bench all year. He might come in at the end, and then maybe next year, then unleash him. But yeah, I think that, the other guys, the second-year quarterbacks, Jalen Hurts, Burrow, Herbert, those guys making the jump. And then it's so deep at quarterback these days. That's why, like, if you're in one quarterback fantasy leagues, wait on your quarterback. If you're in 2 quarterback leagues, you can wait until the 3rd round or 4th round to get your first one.
Who would you put in your top tier quarterbacks for this fantasy season? Like, I don't know. I don't know how many guys who would you say is in like
my top 5? My top 5 are Mahomes, Murray, Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, and then right after them are Justin Herbert and Ryan Tannehill. Believe it or not, Tannehill has been like the number 2 quarterback since he's took over the starting job like 2-3 years ago. If you put his numbers up against Mahomes, he's number 2 behind it. I mean, that's how good he's been.
Where do you stand on Matt Stafford changing jerseys and Dak Prescott returning from injury? Like, where do those 2 fall in your pecking order?
I think that Dak is right below the Herbert and Tannehill, but Dak could real easily go back up to where, like, in the top 5 because he was on a pace for 7,000 yards at the time. Dak right now is going through dead arm, basically. It's like when he was rehabbing his leg so much, he got that back, but then like he started throwing every day, all day, and it's just his arm is just going through a dead phase. And I think he'll be fine by opening day, but you might temper expectations a little bit. Let's go. Stafford, I think, is going to do fine. It's funny. I don't think it's that much of an upgrade unless we got to see it. Like, I could be like, oh, okay, yeah, I could see how he runs this offense way better than Goff did. But Goff has won more playoff games in his career than Matt Stafford has. Everybody thought. I think it was more of a lateral move, to be honest with you. I just don't think Goff and McVay got along, and that's why he's out of there. I don't think Stafford's all that much better, but I think he'll be very serviceable. He's going to have to throw more now that Cam Akers tore his Achilles. So we have, that kind of leads us into the running back position. All the other quarterbacks, like I said, it's pretty much, it is what it is. I think that, like guys like Tua, I think there's major pressure on Tua Tagovailoa this year to do it. He's got a good team behind him. And I also think that, guys like we'll see what happens with like Deshaun Watson. I don't think he's playing this year. Cam Newton, I think he'll play most of the year too instead of Mac Jones. Who's going to start between Taysom and Jameis? Who do you think?
I think that coach will end up like mixing and matching all season long and not having one guy, gets 80% or more of the snaps. I think he just has this love affair and how much they paid Taysom. It's hard to see him not having a role, but I think Jameis is the better quarterback, and will kind of earn more and more snaps. But I don't think one guy will get full role. I think they're going to do a lot of strange things as they've been known to do lately.
What about between Bridgewater and Drew Luck?
I think Luck will end up winning that.
Yeah, I think so too. He just has that deep arm that they're looking for. So
and they got really good receiving core.
So that blends in, to the running back position this year. You were talking about the core guys that we got, and we got about 10 to 12 guys that are just the bell cow backs. Where are you like standing on like C-Mac this year? You think was he your number one pick if you were picking first in the draft?
I mean, the type of league would really dictate. Obviously, the more PPR it is, I think I would land on him. I mean, he's a receiver and a running back in terms of the volume that he had in his last healthy season, and he has the skill set, to break long runs and take passes 80 yards. And has a nose for the end zone. I think like he has the highest ceiling at the position in terms of touches and touchdowns. But it's a different dynamic. I think his coach wants to throw the ball more, and they have a better quarterback, better receivers, and not such a great old line. But I think he would be the number one guy. If I was forced to make a decision. And I personally think there's only like, 4 guys in the top echelon when discussing fantasy, and then I think there's like another tier beneath that.
Yeah, this year, there's, I think most guys, it's funny, almost every running back has a little bit of a question mark.
Sure, yeah.
On them, Dalvin Cook is the only guy that, like, if you wanted to throw up his injury history, he has a little bit of it.
Yeah.
But, like, with C-Max, the same thing. But, like, Derrick Henry, at some point, the number of carries he's getting is just got to wear on him. He's like 28 now, 29. Julio Jones is there in that offense. There are people thinking it's going to be easier for him to run. There are people thinking they're not going to run as much. Maybe he'll get more touchdowns. We don't know. Kamara is another guy who's quarterback, we saw what happens when Taysom's the quarterback. It kind of neutered Kamara a little bit. But you got to think if they have a whole offseason knowing that Taysom might be in there more, they're going to make a point to get him the ball.
And Michael Thomas's status is like such a big factor to what type of volume he gets. The games when Thomas missed, his touch volume was significantly higher than earlier in the year when Thomas was around.
And then, Saquon Barkley with his knee, if he's back or not. The guy that I'm higher on than most of the industry. There's 3 guys that I'm higher on, I think, than most of the industry, I put all these guys ahead of the 3 guys that I just named. The guys that
Let me guess. Okay.
All
right. Nick Chubb.
That's one of them.
Austin Eckler.
2.
And Jonathan Taylor.
No, I was on Taylor, but the guy that I'm into now, Aaron Jones.
Okay.
Aaron Jones even more. Like, he's had 2 top 5 running back finishes the last 2 years. People don't really know about that. Jamal Williams is gone. Now, A.J. Dillon might get a little bit more carries this year, but the passing game work more is going to come to Jones this year as before.
Mm-hmm.
So where those guys, look, I think if you're drafting in the top 8 or 10, you can get any one of those guys and be happy with them. I think it's almost like pure preference at that point. You know what I'm saying? Because the point per game difference is probably 1 or 2 points a game, which really isn't that big of a deal in the long run. You don't lose your leagues on 1 or 2 points, because you're running back. So, I love me some Aaron Jones, Nick Chubb, Austin Eckler. Those are just my guys. The reason why I like Eckler, and it's not just because of the Chargers, but Joe Lombardi was the quarterback's coach for the Saints. He was also the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions when one Theo Riddick was a PPR dream. And we all know what he did with the Saints offense, being the quarterback's coach and running calling the plays there with Alvin Kamara. So we have Eckler in that role, playing in the Kamara type role. And it's sky's the limit. People don't realize that Justin Herbert checked it down in college more than almost any other quarterback in college in his senior year. So he knows how to check it down. He knows how to use his check down plays. And people don't realize that since Eckler has started, he's a little injury prone, but every running back's injury prone. Since Eckler has started his career or been the starter, he's had his point per game is third behind C-Mac and Cook for the last 3 years. So I like Eckler. Chubb, obviously, if he ever gets a little bit more increase in the passing game work, which he was getting a few more targets towards the end of the year, he's going to be an RB1. And if anything happens in Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb could be the running back 1 completely, beat everybody.
Super talented.
Those are my guys. I mean, obviously, other guys that are garnering, Antonio Gibson is getting a lot of play these days. They think they're basically putting him in the Christian McCaffrey role because it's a Ron Rivera offense or, Ron Rivera team again. Najee Harris is the rookie that everybody is fawning over because he's going to get 3-down work in Pittsburgh, and it's the volume, and it's the offense, and it's catching, and it's everything.
I don't see that at all.
Here's where I'm a little bit bearish on Najee Harris, even though everybody loves him. That Steeler offensive line is the worst in the NFL. I want to invest in offensive lines. What's the best? Their offensive line is terrible. So that's going to hurt him. Why do you think Ben was throwing so quick to Johnson and Juju? Because he had to get the ball out. He didn't have any time.
Yep.
So the rookie that I am probably highest on, that I'm hoping, once they get out, Javonte Williams is probably my favorite rookie. Melvin Gordon's there, though. It's going to muddle things for a while. Travis Etienne and James Robinson are going to be sharing time for a while, too. I think Etienne is more of a DK play in the beginning, at least. I'm staying away from the Bills running backs completely. Don't need it. Texans don't need it.
And then there's some strange, the Raiders added on a number 2 guy that could be a 1 instead of Josh Jacobs having to roll it to himself. The Cardinals, not the Cardinals. Where did where did the running back that was on the Cardinals go?
Drake went to the Raiders.
To the okay, that they're paired up together. Yeah. Who's San Fran's running backs this year? You got Mostert,
and then you got Trey Sermon, the rookie, and they're thinking by the end of the year, Sermon's going to take over. Mostert's always injury prone. Everybody loves Sermon. It's funny.
I like Mostert.
I just think that the public in general, or just fantasy analysts and media in general, they just love the unknown more than anything. You've already seen Raheem Mostert we've seen we haven't seen Trey Sermon in the NFL, but we've seen what he did in college, so he must be able to do the same here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, calm your jets on these rookies. You know, like I know that NFL is getting more and more younger every year, but let's let them, learn the game. Let them get some experience under their belt.
Where do you stand on these three guys? Like, how would you rank them? Miles Sanders, J.K. Dobbins, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Edwards-Helaire, then a big gap, then Dobbins, and then Sanders.
How about where does Zeke Elliott end the season in the running back totem pole?
Zeke is right up there in the top 10. Like people, the Cowboys' offensive line is healthy.
Very good.
If Dak is healthy, he's gonna get right back into his normal workload. So I think Zeke is in for a good bounce back season. I mean, he's a top 10 back easily too. I mean, there's probably a group of about 12 running backs that are legit you can rely on. Then
it falls off, right? It's like
there's a dead zone, is what they're saying.
So if you were drafting, you'd go McCaffrey, Cook. Who would your third guy be?
Eckler. I have Eckler third. Well, I'm waffling between Eckler and Aaron Jones. Like I don't really know what I would do between those three. I love Eckler a lot, but I'm also a little wary of the fact that he's never had a full workload.
Mm-hmm.
So you're really relying on the PPR aspect, and you're hoping that they give him those goal line carries that Anthony Lynn stole from him last year through Kalen Ballage and some other running back that they signed off the street. We know that Jones is going to get the majority of the touches, even though Dylan's there and such. And then Chubb, you still got Hunt there. So it's like I said, it's a toss up. It's personal preference. All the other ones have question marks too. Like Barkley with his injury, Taylor with is Wentz healthy or not? That's going to hurt him. Kamara with the quarterback situations. And that's basically it. That'd probably be it. I mean, Eckler, Jones, then Chubb, then we go probably Kamara, Zeke, Henry. Because I like Zeke and Kamara over Henry because they'll catch passes at least.
Okay. And give me one sleeper that you like to, finish in the top 10 of running backs that, is nowhere near that in people's projections right now.
I mean, it's tough. You'd say you'd want to go with a rookie, but I would probably lean towards. Oh, man, I like Javonte Williams, but maybe people aren't talking about him because they love somebody else. Maybe James Robinson.
Yeah, I mean, he was phenomenal last year, and I expect him to have a very similar workload. And he was a true 3-down back. I know that they did bring in ATN, who's seems like the third down role, but Robinson caught his fair share of passes. For me, I would say I'm really high on Raheem Mostert. He had 3 of the 5 fastest, in mile per hour runs last year. They have a solid offensive line. I expect them to be winning a lot of games and him getting carries as long as he's healthy. I think he could be really sneaky by the end of the year. And I think Myles Gaskin is also kind of interesting. I think Miami is much better than people perceive, and I think they're going to rely on him a lot. And I liked what I saw out of him running the ball last year.
Yeah, with Robinson, all I'm gathering from reports is that he is the number 1 running back right now.
Yeah,
maybe Etienne towards the end of the year, but right now he's the number 1 running back.
Yep.
So Javonte Williams is another sleeper that I don't mind. And it's kind of risky to go to this backfield, but everything I've been hearing is that he's the number one guy is Damian Harris.
Yeah, the New England. I've heard the same.
You know, he's their guy. Don't be expecting running back one numbers, but if he's your running back 2 or 3 of bye week fill-in, he's going to get his carries. He's going to get goal line or whatever.
How about a guy like Mike Davis in Atlanta, or like a guy like James Conner in Arizona? You have any expectations out of either of them that could exceed?
I mean, Mike Davis is going to get volume. That's the thing. There's nobody there right now to for competition in Atlanta. Everybody's expecting them to sign somebody. Maybe somebody gets cut, like Fournette did, and then they pick him up because people just think there's no way they're going to go into the season with Mike Davis.
He was good when he filled in for McCaffrey last year. I think he's got a decent opportunity for volume, which is a big part of the game for running backs.
Yeah, and he's like on FanDuel week 1, he's 6,200. All he's got to do is fall into the end zone, get catch a couple balls. He'll do that, So, anyways, let's move on to the wide receiver position. It's stacked. It's loaded. It's
deep.
It's so deep.
So deep.
It's amazing. Last year, part of the reason my most successful fantasy team had Ridley, Jefferson, and Metcalf all on the same team. And I'm not one to go with like a 0 running back theory, where you just go with all wide receivers and stuff. But I feel like all you need is 2 good running backs, and then you could fill out the rest of your lineup with wide receivers because they're so deep. Who do you have as you still have Adams as your number 1 receiver?
Yeah, I mean, I would have to say that he's got such a guaranteed role, the history, the relationship with such an elite quarterback. It's hard not to see him, eclipsing 100+ receptions, 10+ touchdowns, and 1,000+ yards. But I don't know if he's got as high a ceiling as some of the guys around him, but I'd say he's probably the most consistent, the most safe pick for upper echelon receivers.
Here's my thing: he's in a contract year.
Mm-hmm.
So he's in a walk year. Him and Rodgers want to put the league on notice with the Packers and just the whole organization, stick it to them, and then leave. One last hurrah. So my rankings right now for receivers, it goes Adams. Hopkins is number 2. And I think
Hopkins.
Hopkins can challenge Adams as the number 1 guy. Tyreek, and then it's Diggs, Ridley, Metcalf.
Diggs, Ridley. Yeah, I mean, I'm not as high on Calvin Ridley. I do acknowledge the talent, but I do think having Julio there and him not getting all the attention all the time was a big benefactor of some of his big numbers. And now that he's going to be on his own, it may detract from some of his overall numbers. But, it's not like I would drop him out of the top 10 or anything. I'm not as high. I wouldn't put him in the same tier as Tyreek, Adams, and Hopkins. I think those 3 are the clear top 3. Maybe you could argue Diggs in there. I want to see another season of how much he dominated. And I do think that he doesn't have as much competition for targets, similar to Devontae Adams, where Ridley did in the past. But Calvin Ridley's certainly in the next tier for me. But I wouldn't be shocked if guys like Metcalf or AJ Brown or Justin Jefferson surpassed him this year, and he was, more 8 to 13-ish.
I mean, if they let Russell Wilson just pass the ball more, DK Metcalf could be the number 1 receiver this year.
He could have a huge year, yeah.
He could have a huge year. They just stopped throwing to him, and he was interviewed after the end of the season. He's like, once teams knew all we could try to do was throw deep, they just took that away, and they didn't want to try and throw anywhere else. Where do you fall on Julio Jones taking away or helping AJ Brown? Because I'm team DK.
Right.
You
No,
can't seem to like both, but I they're both good receivers. I prefer Metcalf more than Brown. It's just
I do too. I mean, number one, like, Brown's got Julio to compete with targets where DK really doesn't. Like Lockett is a glorified slot receiver, in my opinion. Like he's not a guy that's gonna get 100+ catches for 10+ touchdowns. DK's the clear number one. I could see Julio having a better year than AJ Brown. You know what I mean? Like, so to me, it's clearly DK over AJ Brown.
mm-hmm. Yeah, it is what it is. I think what's funny is that some people detract from Metcalf because they say he's in a run first offense and he has Lockett there. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Isn't AJ Brown the same thing? He's in a run first offense with Henry,
right.
and you have Julio there now. So,
mm-hmm.
Probably the other receivers, to me, guys like, Terry McLaurin are always, everybody likes. Brandon Ayuk, I think is great, but I personally, I like Debo better when they were both. Debo Samuel, I think, is just as valuable as Brandon Ayuk, and in drafts, Ayuk is going before Debo. Where do you fall on the trio of Steeler receivers of Deontay, Juju, and Claypool?
It seems like Deontay is like in that system, the number one guy. I do think Juju and Claypool are actually more talented, but he kind of has that Antonio Brown role, and that's like the type of quarterback and receiver and route tree that Roethlisberger prefers. So I think he'll end up with more opportunities, but I think Claypool's like the far superior athlete and could easily take his spot. Like I think Claypool is not far off from guys like AJ Brown and Metcalf in terms of size and ability.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed like Juju took like a step back last year and became more of like the over the middle kind of guy. And they didn't really air it out to him as much as they had in previous years. But, I'd like to see those guys kind of find other teams and see what they can do as the number one, then have them all bunched together, similar to Tampa Bay. Like they have three clear guys that are very good, and they're all going to kind of take away from each other a little bit instead of like one guy rising to the top.
Yeah, I think in drafts, I think AB is the value that you want to get. He's close enough. He's closer to Godwin and Evans and going like 7 rounds or 6 rounds later.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about your boys? Your one big signing, Galladay. Are you happy about him? You can't stay healthy, but
I think he's supremely talented and will have a very good year because he's the clear go-to guy over there, and like he has top, say, 7 receiver talent. But the Giants O-line is terrible, and I'm not really sold on Daniel Jones, although like he does have some impressive deep ball stats, for how bad their offensive line was and how, mediocre their receivers were last year. So there is potential for that to blow up, but a lot of things have to go right. And, it's not looking like that's going to happen at this point. But I think he'll have a solid season, but I wouldn't go too high on him. There's just not a ton of upside for that to work out, with all the things going against it. Like I'd rather grab a guy like Allen Robinson, who, is a clear number one in a mediocre offense, but he's been more durable, and they have a significantly better O-line.
Where are you following on your favorite rookies, wide receivers, like Jamar Chase, Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle?
Yeah, I haven't seen enough yet to really have like a firm opinion. I thought going into the draft that Jamar Chase was the most talented. But he hasn't played in almost 2 years now. And You know, like that's going to take time, and they have a terrible line, but I do think he's got the potential to become a number one stud. You can't take away from what the kid out of Alabama, what's his name?
Devonta Smith.
Yeah, Devontae Smith. Like, what a season! And like, just because he doesn't have the size and speed doesn't mean he's not going to be great. Like, not some of the best receivers of all time weren't the fastest, strongest, or largest. And he certainly is an elite route runner. Understands the game. Understands where to sit down in zones. And I'm probably higher on him than most of the field. It seems like a lot of people are like expecting like regression out of him, that he was in such a great situation, and maybe. I'm not as high on the other kid out of Alabama that's out of Miami, but I could be proven wrong. I just haven't seen enough yet, though, to have like firm opinions. And I think there's like another tier below that that's interesting. The kid Moore on the Jets, I'm really interested in. And, ultimately it's going to come down to who gets playing time in the right scenarios. But I do think that kid Elijah Moore has a lot of potential, too, as like a sleeper of the rookie class.
Yeah, my sleeper on the rookie class is Terrace Marshall Jr. He's a Carolina receiver. He had LSU. He was the third receiver. It was Chase, there was Jefferson, and then there was this guy Marshall.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the guy that I'm looking forward to getting late in drafts and such. He's a good rookie. I like Rondale Moore. The guy that's in Phoenix with the Cardinals.
Sure.
He's kind of playing that gadget role in that offense that Kingsbury likes to run. So he's a rookie I like. Jamar Chase. Remember Maurice Clarett? He was pretty good. He was pretty good in college, right? Everybody thought he was going to be a trailblazing good running back. Do you remember also the receiver out of USC, Mike Williams?
Yeah,
remember him?
Of course.
Both of them took a year off of football. They tried to challenge the draft rule, and they had to take a year off.
Mm-hmm.
Clarett, we all know, never came back. Mike Williams blew up to like 270 pounds, just got fat, and just did not do it. You take a year off, no matter how good you are. I don't know, like, how that's going to affect you.
Right.
And they're saying the start of camp that he had tough getting separation and stuff. I think they're looking for shit, to be honest with you.
Sure.
But it's just kind of like, okay, it might take him a little bit longer than normal. People are always so trying to hurry these rookies up.
Yeah.
But I like him. My sleeper receiver this year, I don't know if he's a sleeper, but if he can get some good quarterback play, he can go up with, last year it was Justin Jefferson. It was CeeDee Lamb, obviously. CeeDee Lamb to me is the one receiver this year. I think I have him in my top 12 receivers. We forgot to talk about him. He's not even like the guy I was even getting to. But the guy I think that can make that jump up to them is Jerry Jeudy. He's probably top 5 route runners in the league. He just had a terrible quarterback last year, so if he gets any better quarterback play, he's just as good as Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb. How do you feel about CeeDee Lamb this year? Because he is like fantasy's darling this year. Everybody just assumed that he's going to go ahead of Cooper. I mean, I think he's going to ascend to that too. He's on my to-draft list.
So, like, I think he's very talented, but I think everyone's a little too high on him, and I wouldn't pay up for that. Like, he's just going way too high, and like, Amari Cooper is supremely talented. He's not just gonna like fall away. You got Zeke coming back. I think Tony Pollard's the best backup running back, in football right now, and going to get touches, carries. Like, there's just a lot of mouths to feed in that offense. And I just don't see CeeDee Lamb just breaking away from everyone else. I think it's similar to the Tampa Bay and Pittsburgh situations where, like, yes, he's very talented, but ultimately, like, I don't think his numbers will exceed some of the, the top 10 receivers because of lack of opportunity.
Here's where I see that why that whole offense might not produce like everybody thinks they are. Because their defense has got to be better than it was.
Mm-hmm.
Dak had to put up 55 points because their defense was giving up 65.
Yeah.
So if the defense is better, they don't have to pass as much. They don't have to play the catch up. I mean, remember in the beginning of the year, God, it was just whoever Dallas is playing, let's stack that. You know what I mean? Like, that's what you're doing. It was like, was it Dallas and Seattle like week 2 or something? And it was just,
yeah,
that's what you did.
I mean, Dak was incredible the first, like he willed them to those wins and like, with zero help from the defense, and it was great for fantasy. But, also if Dak isn't healthy, like, there's no way that CeeDee Lamb's going to be in the top 10 of receivers.
But yeah, and some other guys I think that you just don't forget, like everybody loves the rookies, but don't forget, like, Jamar Chase, don't forget Tyler Boyd has got great value. He's going to get the slot receiver in that Cincinnati offense and get a ton of targets.
Mm-hmm.
Mike
Williams.
That's another guy. Mike Williams is poised for a breakout year if he can stay healthy.
Yep.
If he isn't healthy, if he's hurt, there's a rookie the Chargers have by the name of Josh Palmer. I'm telling you, he will be the Chargers' number 2 receiver next year because they're going to let Williams walk. This is another reason why Williams is going to have a great year because this is a
contract. Yeah,
it's contract year. But Josh Palmer, he was a 3rd-round receiver out of Tennessee. First preseason game, the first drive, he had like 6 catches. Like they love this kid.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's another rookie. That's one other rookie to think about. We could talk about receivers a lot. Let's move on to the tight end position. We talked about it a little bit, how safe it is and stuff. If Calvin Ridley is going to be in that top echelon of receivers, as you said he isn't, the only way that he can get there is if Kyle Pitts is who everybody thinks Kyle Pitts can be.
Sure.
Because that's basically the Julio thing. If defense have got to worry about Pitts now, that's going to free up Ridley. That's his path to number 1 receiver right there, is if Pitts is good.
Yep.
I just can't see. Pitts is basically got to have the best season of a tight end ever for him to reach where he's being drafted right now as a rookie.
Yeah, I know. Like he was, very good last year in college, but he wasn't like, this top offensive player on the field at all times. Like he's really like, his workout and size and stats are just like catapulting him to this like just excessive overpriced that I won't be getting him in my drafts. It's just too high. I mean, he may end up being excellent, has a great opportunity, good offense, good quarterback, but I didn't see this like surefire, like essentially Hall of Famer they're labeling him as right now. When I watched a few of his games at Florida, like sure he was very good, but the best players are in college, but it wasn't like, I don't know, like something I'd never seen before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I feel you. Now the other tight ends, there's not. It's kind of like a shit show, in my opinion. They're just. It's basically, to me, it's maybe 4 guys, and then the rest is crapshoot. I think that there's a little bit of a gap, but it's still sort of a crapshoot. Now, to me, guys like obviously Kelsey, Waller, Kittle, I like. Kittle stays healthy, he's great. Andrews is pretty, reliable. Guys that I like, though, this year to maybe make that jump into the Andrews kind of territory. I don't think they're going to. Noah Fant, that's one of them. The other guy, I like TJ Hawkinson. We got to think Goff is going to be Detroit's going to be down a lot of games. Goff is just going to be peppering Hawkinson with targets. You're going to get a lot of garbage time with that.
Who's the number one receiver in Detroit?
It's Brashad Perryman or Quintus Cephas. Yeah. I think if the Eagles trade Zach Ertz, Goddard, then catapults.
Yep.
I think you have guys with upside. Like, to me, a guy with a lot of upside is Gesicki.
Yep.
Because I don't think Tua can make all the throws that they want in the NFL. I think he's limited that way, so he's going to just be throwing underneath to your tight end.
What do you think about Hunter Henry in New England?
Hunter Henry's fine. The thing is they got Jonnu Smith there too. They got both of those guys there. They're going to try and run like the Gronkowski, Aaron Hernandez type. I think that, they're like good for best ball. You don't know when they're going to go off. They'll be great for GPPs because you can't ever rely on them. The guys like, Logan Thomas, he's going to be okay. I think Irv Smith has some upside this year. And then guys that like, just basic vanilla that doesn't really going to, shock, dazzle anybody. Gronkowski will get his. And then Jared Cook with the Chargers, he's going to be offense. Going to get targets.
I'm really high on Cole Kmet at the Bears. I think he could really break out. I think he's really talented, very good receiving tight end with size that could develop a really nice relationship with Fields and with Allen Robinson, like the clear number one that could get a lot of attention. Rookie quarterbacks like to check down to big tight ends a lot. And if that offense is doing well and Fields is legit, Cole Kmet could have a big breakout year and be like a, Kittle Jr. type player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could happen. I think Gerald Everett.
Yeah, good spot.
For sure. With the Seattle, I think and it also frees up Higbee. Some people love Higbee, some people don't. I think he's just in that group where he could have a good week, or he could go.
Tim Tebow.
Yeah, you just got
one out.
Yeah, it's too bad for him, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, white privilege, man. That is the definition of white privilege. Is Tim Tebow. Like, Jesus Christ, man, he is good. I mean, he was a minor league baseball player.
Yeah.
And then he just, I'm going to just go try out. They call my old coach. I want to be a tight end. Okay, why not? He does one block. He gets on like, oh, man, that was terrible. You're cut. You're done. I mean, too bad. Too bad for Tebow. Let's wrap this up. Do we play any preseason DFS, Paul? Are you going to play any preseason DFS? I do not play preseason DFS. I just don't want to.
I think with the one less game and like certain situations there are opportunities. Like, it was pretty obvious Fields was going to have, the highest snap total or, one of the week last week because so many other teams were resting guys. And like, I do think there will be a few opportunities here and there if you want to have some fun, play some GPPs just to get to know where certain guys are. And, you definitely get like experience for the regular season by playing it. But I wouldn't invest in that. It's so many things can happen and you just don't know who's going to play how much. And, I wouldn't invest any serious capital into it personally.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's ways if you really want to go through it and see who's going to play, and you got to talk to the beat writers, you got to read the beat writers, what they're going to say. Tough because the beat writers aren't necessarily truthful all the time too. So they don't even know.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyways, any more bold comments or any predictions for the season? We'll get out of here, Paulie.
Bold predictions. I'll say that we have two new teams in the Super Bowl this year that neither KC or Tampa return. I'm pretty positive Tampa Bay doesn't return. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about bold. I'll take the Giants to be the worst team in football this year.
I think, well, the worst team in football are going to be the Houston Texans.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. Houston will be the worst.
There are some like tiers where the Giants just won't fall into that tier. Like Detroit's going to be worse than the Giants. Houston will be worse than the Giants.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough to see. Like,
I think we got shut out by the Jets in preseason. Like, that says a lot.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's preseason though. So, to me, I think that a couple teams that might surprise, I think the Cardinals could surprise. I think the Niners have a very easy schedule. Right now, I'm gonna go with Green Bay going to the Super Bowl.
Wow, that's bold. That's really bold.
Aaron Rodgers decides to run it on that third down play instead of throw it out of bounds or something. Instead of going to that, he could run it in for a touchdown. They probably win. I just think that Rodgers, Adams, they're just gonna put a hurt on the league because of all the shit that went down, and that's it. And I think that one of the most overrated teams. Here's another bold prediction: the Chargers will have a better record than the Rams. Okay.
Chargers. That is bold. That is. The Rams are very good, and I disagree with what you said about Stafford. I think, outside of having, Megatron, that kid is, come against all kinds of adversity, and I think he's one of the more underrated quarterbacks of like the last 10 years. And this is going to be a really good situation on a really good team with an excellent defense and weapons all around and a good coaching staff. And I wouldn't be shocked to see the Rams being one of the best teams in football this year.
I mean, I could see it happening. The thing is that they are like paper thin. If they get more and more injuries, they gave up all their draft picks, everything. They're like win now, and if something goes wrong, it could go really bad. I'm predicting the Packers and the Ravens in the Super Bowl.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a little different. I'm not, I think that there's teams that could definitely in the AFC is wide open. I think the Browns could compete for it. I think that the Bills could compete for it too. They're right there, but with the Bills, I think that they're going to take a step back. That division last year was terrible. Terrible.
It's much better this year.
Exactly. Miami's better.
Yeah, New England was horrible last year. They're going to be better this year.
New England had so many players out, opt out for COVID. They're going to be better. I just don't. I can't see them as the number 1 or number 2 seed. And now only the number 1 seed has a bye now. I think I think that's a new thing. So they're all going to be playing. I think that the Chiefs might have a little bit of Super Bowl hangover. I mean, what team has lost the Super Bowl and then come back the next year?
Not since probably the Bills.
Yeah, I can't remember because usually teams that lose, they don't even make them. Most of the time, they don't even make the playoffs.
Well, I mean, prior to, the 91, 92, 93 Bills, I mean, since that, the team that lost the Super Bowl, I think, has significantly declined like 80% of the time.
That's why, I mean, teams like the Chargers, teams like the Broncos, the
Cowboys, if Dak comes back healthy, things could come together for the Cowboys. There's a lot of talent on that team, and maybe, one mid-season, trade or free agent signing for the defense could turn things around there big time.
The line for good and great is really good. I mean, one last thing, I think the Broncos, if they get any quarterback play, could be right up there in the AFC West, which is one of the tough divisions.
Mm-hmm.
But all right, Paulie. So I say right now, Ravens and the Packers in the Super Bowl. That's pretty much going to be it. All right, so, but anyways, guys, this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be talking football on Wednesday nights. We're going to be going over the slate starting week 1 in 2 or 3 weeks. If you have any questions, hit up Paulie D at Paulie8Ds. Of course, you can always hit me up at Twitter, Patio Joe Ref. We thank you guys for checking us out tonight, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. So for Paulie D, I'm Patio Joe, and as our man CK says in the back, good luck.